This story smells fishier than Taco Bell sushi. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and this is Winnie the Westie, and this story is so preposterous, I don't even know what to make of it. It involves the allegedly, you're distracting me, it involves the allegedly stolen diary of the daughter of the president that was allegedly shopped around to various news outlets, and now the FBI is allegedly raiding the offices of Project Veritas. From Fox News, FBI raids home of Project Veritas James O'Keefe as part of investigation into Ashely Biden's, quote, stolen, end quote, diary. Quote, Project Veritas came under attack, end quote, O'Keefe said in a video statement released Friday. Now, first things first, for those out there who want to pigeonhole me as being right-wing because I read Fox News, I did try to read this story on other news outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post. What I find amazing is that the same news article is behind a paywall on the New York Times and the Washington Post. Apparently, those two news outlets are not making enough money through advertising dollars that they have to put content behind a paywall, and if I'm not ready to pay the New York Times and the Washington Post to misinform me, I'm not going to know how they are misinforming people. So alas, I am left having to read this from Fox News, although I verified the same story on other news outlets and I watched James O'Keefe's video. But my goodness, a stolen diary shopped around to the media, and now the FBI is allegedly raiding the offices of James O'Keefe and Project Veritas. Now, first things first, who is Ashely Biden? Ashely Blazer Biden, born June 8, 1981, is an American social worker, activist, philanthropist, and fashion designer. Her parents are U.S. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden. Ashely Biden is the daughter of the President of the United States. She's 40 years old, and I say this not to age shame her, I say this to diary keeping shame her.
What kind of 40-year-old person keeps a diary?
Alright, I say that tongue-in-cheek because I do know that my own brother keeps a diary, and it proves very useful to test his memory and to recall things that happened in the past. I am showing perhaps my own bias here in that I do not keep a diary. I would never keep a diary, and I am very suspicious about any president's daughter keeping a diary that she allegedly leaves behind in a hotel room or a place that she's staying, but I'm getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just read this story. The FBI raided the home of Project Veritas founder James O'Keefe as part of a federal investigation into the, quote, stolen, end quote, diary of President Biden's daughter, Ashely Biden. The New York Times reported the raid took place early Saturday morning, just days after the homes of two Project Veritas associates were also the subject of search warrants. A spokesman for the FBI told the Times its agents had, quote, performed law enforcement activity, end quote, at his apartment building in Mamaroneck, New York, but did not comment on the investigation. The FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the same FBI that was involved in falsifying documents that were submitted to a FISA court in order to obtain an unlawful spy warrant on Carter Page and the Trump campaign, the FBI, the same FBI that seemingly had more informants than active participants
in the alleged Whitmer kidnapping plot.
The same FBI that sought to entrap and absolutely destroy Michael Flynn. Yeah, that FBI. And I took to Twitter with what I think is an undumb tweet to express my cynicism. The same FBI that submitted falsified documents to a FISA court to spy on Trump. The same FBI that entrapped Flynn now raided James O'Keefe and Project Veritas over Ashely Biden's diary. But still hasn't gone after Hunter Biden. FBI totally hasn't been politicized FBI totally hasn't been politically weaponized. And for those of you who may not know what I am referencing in terms of the FBI not going after Hunter Biden, well, it seems to many that Hunter Biden may have committed several felonious acts in applying for a handgun by lying on the application form and then improperly disposing of that handgun.
What? What the fuck?
Alright, in fairness, it was Hunter Biden's wife who unlawfully disposed of the firearm by throwing it in a dumpster when she realized her husband had procured a firearm. But yeah, that FBI, which is not going after Hunter Biden for actual apparent felonious activity, is going after James O'Keefe because of a stolen diary. The investigation is being conducted by the FBI and federal prosecutors in Manhattan. And it's not just any prosecutors in Manhattan, it happens to be none other than the Southern District of New York, and I have learned enough from my various researches and live streams with Robert Barnes that the SDNY itself has a bit of a reputation of potentially being a little corrupt. Project Veritas responded to a Fox News inquiry by pointing to video remarks O'Keefe released Friday reacting to the previous FBI raids of his journalists. And here are some highlights from that video release from James O'Keefe and Project Veritas.
I woke to the news that apartments and homes of Project Veritas journalists, or former journalists, had been raided by FBI agents. It appears the Southern District of New York now has journalists in their sights for the supposed crime of doing their jobs lawfully and honestly. Late last year, we were approached by tipsters claiming they had a copy of Ashely Biden's diary. We had never met or heard of the tipsters. The tipsters indicated the diary had been abandoned in a room in which Ms. Biden stayed at the time. The tipsters indicated that the diary included explosive allegations against then-candidate Joe Biden. At the end of the day, we made the ethical decision that because, in part, we could not determine if the diary was real, if the diary in fact belonged to Ashely Biden, or if the contents of the diary occurred, we could not publish the diary and any part thereof.
So just to summarize for those of you who may not actually believe this setup, apparently someone contacts James O'Keefe and Project Veritas and says that they have a copy of Ashely Biden's diary that she allegedly left behind in a room where these people then stayed, and it contains some explosive allegations about Joe Biden during an election year, and they want Project Veritas or any other news outlet to publish the contents of this journal. They say that they are shopping this diary around to other news outlets. They are doing the negotiation through an attorney, which itself seems super suspicious, and James O'Keefe and Project Veritas ultimately do not publish the contents of the diary because they are unable to verify the authenticity of the contents of it. They then try to give it back to the parties doing the negotiations with them, but the attorney apparently refuses to take it back, so they go to the authorities to give it to the authorities, and what happens after all of that? The FBI then raids the homes of Project Veritas journalists and apparently raids the apartment of James O'Keefe himself, all of this based on this alleged diary of Ashely Biden. If that does not reek of a setup, if that does not reek of the very same entrapment that we have witnessed the FBI doing over and over again in recent memory, maybe I'm conspiratorial, but maybe you're just naive for not seeing it. And as if this wasn't suspicious enough, that the FBI is using this allegedly stolen diary of Ashely Biden as a pretext to raid the apartment of James O'Keefe, raid the homes of Project Veritas journalists. Apparently the New York Times, who you have to pay in order to read that article, got a little heads-up tip that this was going to break as a story. O'Keefe alleged that, quote, within an hour, end quote, of the FBI's raid of the home of a Project Veritas reporter, the Times contacted the reporter for comment. Quote, we do not know how the New York Times was aware of the execution of a search warrant at our reporter's home or the subject matter of the search warrant, as a grand jury investigation is secret, end quote, O'Keefe said. Quote, the FBI took materials of current, former Project Veritas journalists, despite the fact that our legal team previously contacted the Department of Justice and voluntarily conveyed unassailable facts that demonstrate Project Veritas's lack of involvement in criminal activity and or criminal intent, end quote. I know a lot of you out there are rightly going to be saying to yourselves, what good is it for someone to say they have investigated themselves and determined they did nothing wrong? I would expect Project Veritas to say nothing other than the fact that they have always abided by rules and the law. But my goodness, if this story does not smell fishy to you, you need to go get your nose checked. Tipsters contact Project Veritas and say that they have stumbled across Ashely Biden's diary and it contains explosive allegations about her father. They don't do anything with this diary, apparently. They allegedly give it back to the Department of Justice or the authorities, and then they are raided by the FBI. I have never read a James Ellroy novel. I just know that Robert Barnes will probably say during our next live stream that this is nothing more
than an outright setup.
I mean, if this was not a setup just to be used as an excuse to go after and further harass Project Veritas and James O'Keefe, what on earth was the FBI doing involved in this story to begin with? Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett appeared on Hannity Friday and stressed that there's a, quote, huge difference, end quote, between what Ashely Biden's attorney has alleged that her diary was stolen versus what O'Keefe alleged about it being left behind in a room, saying, quote, one's a crime and the other one isn't, end quote. Jarrett insisted that even if the diary was the subject of a theft, it would be a, quote, state crime, end quote, rather than a federal crime, and that the investigation, which allegedly began under Attorney General William Barr, has become a, quote, enormous conflict of interest, end quote, with President Biden now in office. And even if that diary were in fact authentic, even if a 40-year-old woman is keeping a diary that contains explosive allegations against her father, who is the President of the United States, even if that diary were in fact stolen, it would still not be illegal for a journalist to publish a story on that diary unless the journalist stole the diary or unless the journalist
incited someone else to steal that diary.
This story is just too outlandish to be true. The FBI's conduct in recent memory has been too over the top for this not to be overtly suspicious, if not an obvious setup, and I'm losing light because it's 5 o'clock in Montreal, and 5 o'clock in Montreal in wintertime, it starts getting dark early. So with that warm, blue, glowing light, if you like my content, you like my videos, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm. What? If you want to support the channel, all of the support links are in the pinned comment. Robert Barnes and I do weekly streams every Sunday. We do weekly streams with a guest every Wednesday called The Sidebar. If you want to find us and support us on Locals, where supporters get lots of exclusive content, but general community members get a lot of content for free, you can find us at
vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
My content is also on Rumble, so you can watch it there, but more important than any of that, take care of yourselves, check in on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well, and now you know your vlog. Peace out. Booyah!